Hello and welcome to the NARC Live Christmas special on Wednesday, the 22nd of December, 2021. Coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC in Norwich.
Hello, I've got myself a new assistant this week. It's called Bugs. So I think he's going to do a better job. So anyway, back to the outside broadcast.
Didn't take you long to replace me, did it?
No.
A couple of hours at the most. And me, David G0SQK, coming to you from Cromer in North Norfolk. On the show tonight, we meet repair shop expert and radio amateur Mark Stuckey G0SQK.
Hello there, how are you doing?
The latest superstation in the region is this. And we find out what on earth this is. But first, that picture of that boat is Radio Caroline. And John M6JAU brings us this news from the suffolknews.co.uk. This station manager of legendary former pirate radio station Radio Caroline said there's a method in the madness to increasing its AM power. As well as operating online and via local DAB, Caroline has now established a high power service on 648 kilohertz AM medium wave, just as it did when first going on air as an off-share radio station 57 years ago. The station, which has been covering East Anglia, as well as the East Midlands, Kent and Sussex, has now increased transmitter power from 1 kilowatt to 4 kilowatts. And it will mean that it will now also cover the Netherlands, Belgium, France and Germany. Peter Moore, the station's manager, said, "It may seem crazy to turn the clock back when other radio stations and the BBC are winding down AM, and only Radio Caroline will do this. But there is method in our madness, in that AM radio works as well as it ever did with durability and long range. For years, the industry and government have been persuading listeners to put perfectly good radios to one side and buy a new set that works in a different way, but maybe not as well. If your usual station has deserted you, listeners can return to Radio Caroline." Ofcom agreed to the increase earlier this year, and the power was boosted last week. A powerful Harris transmitter capable of providing 25 kilowatts of power was imported from Holland and installed at the Orfordness transmitting site. There's someone sitting next to me who's getting very excited by the old radios and things like that. They're going to keep going with that. Thank you very much for that story, John. Now, you know, we've been doing a feature on the filters and things from Ian GM3SEK. Well, Alan G800 is someone who picked up his filter kit from me earlier this week, and on Monday, in fact, and sent this picture to us at 2 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning. Have a look at this. So he's made that kit within hours. And while I do this, and I know a lot of you now have these kits, 42 of you made orders for these things. And the people who ordered the complete kit also got a green terminal that I put in as an extra. And that's really to provide a nice, easy way of connecting to mains Earth. So although it's not documented by Ian in his original document, he did think this was a good idea. I checked it out with him before I ordered them. So if you're wondering what that green terminal is for, if you put that on the on that plastic case and then wire that up to mains Earth, it's an easy way that you can terminate things and bond everything to the mains Earth. Well, now, as you know, at our party last week, if you joined that, we had Bob G6PWS and James M0UKS, who won our competition, which was the conveyor belt round, as we used to see on the generation game. Well, we asked them where they would like it to go. Bob left it to James because Bob lives in Hertfordshire, but James is obviously in this area. And he kind of thought that a care home would be good and asked Tammy and me for what we thought would be best. Well, to be honest, there's only one care home that meant a lot to me, and that was Springdale in Brundall. So just like we did last year, I contacted the manager and said, would you find these gifts useful? And she said they would be wonderful. So all 24 gifts were wrapped by Tammy, and we took them on Monday night. And we can just see that picture now, I think, Tammy, of them being received. They're going through challenging times, like many care homes. In fact, they do have a COVID outbreak in there, and I can't even imagine what that must be like for everybody there, both the residents and the staff. So respect to both those at Springdale and also every other care home, I'm sure you'd agree, in the country who have these difficult conditions to work with. And I hope those 24 gifts that we gave them, plus a little tub of chocolates there, will help their Christmas along. Now, as you know, with a party, there's always some leftovers. And when we finished the 2-hour magathon last week with the party, we did look through some of your jokes and comments that you'd written afterwards. And there was one joke which stood out to me as being real laugh out loud. So I hope you'll forgive us if we go back to that. Kevin's laughing. By the way, Kevin, I should say, Kevin M0 did is behind the camera with this outside broadcast. And I have to read this to you. I hope it was lovely. This is from Simon M0SAH. And he was talking about his celebrations. And he says, I was feeling a bit bored, so I rewrapped all the sweets into different wrappers. The wife wasn't impressed. She's got her Snickers in a Twix. I thought that was funny anyway. That was a real laugh out loud moment. So well done, and thank you to Simon and everybody else who joined in with the party last week and all those terrible cracker jokes and everything. Very, very good. A couple of other bits of news for you. We've got a picture from Phil, G4LPP, and his ex-YL, Alison. And they sent us this beautiful picture here. This year's photo is the stayed in our village. If you in Norfolk, you better Google it, boy, he's put here. 2021 has been an odd year, calm on the home front, but with our hopes of regularly visiting family overseas stymied at every turn, hoping that 2022 will open up some. Happy Christmas and a healthy, happy new year to everyone. Thank you very much for that lovely picture, Phil. And this next picture comes from John, G0MXN. And this comment on this, it says, I said wind turbines were a danger to low-flying objects.
Poor Santa.
Oh, yeah. Your new assistant, Tammy, hasn't said much yet.
No, he's a little camera shy.
Really?
He's a bit camera shy,
okay,
mate.
well,
First night nerves.
Well, I'm going to hand back to you now for the next couple of items.
He's got a galaxy in his hand, so I think he might be chewing on that.
Oh, okay.
Right. The next two things are from Donard, M0KRK. He actually sent them for last week's party, but I didn't get his email until after the party. So I'm sorry, Donard, but I said we'd use them this week. Oh, that's the wrong fader. Hang on a minute. There we go. So these are all about cooking Christmas dinner. So Gunpowder Rocks Matches say this is a recipe for disaster. I thought that was quite good. And then the next one, I'm guessing this is your first attempt at a nut roast.
That's one for you, Tammy.
That is one for me, yep. I do like a good nut roast.
That's lovely.
Okay, and straight on to Little People this week. I was going to go with a Christmassy theme this week, and I promised that I would make something, but things have happened and I haven't had time to finish making what I was making. So if you'll forgive me, maybe next week, slightly after Christmas, I'll show you my Christmas Little People. But for this week, we've got this one. This is called Mouse Racing. Now, they do look like little cars, don't they?
I do. This is something that we feature every week, Mark. Looking on at this is miniature-calendar.com. It's actually a Japanese website, and every day they put up a different picture with improvised something or other, using an everyday object in a different way to make you think of something different.
Oh, okay.
And mouse racing is wonderful.
Yeah. No,
so miniature-calendar.com. If you like that picture, they do a different one every day, and Tammy picks one every week.
Right.
Okay, back to you.
So, thank you. Yep. So keep in touch, won't you? I know we're nearly there now, the big day, Christmas, and maybe it's not quite what we all hoped for this year, but I hope that you'll keep in touch with NARC Live. We will be here again, by the way, next Wednesday. So if you've got any news or Christmas news or anything that you'd like to share with us, then please send it to the usual address. It's at the bottom of your screen now, radio@dcpmicro.com.
I think
You've been keeping us busy.
I think also next week we should get people to show us what they got for Christmas.
Okay, why not?
If they got
especially if it's radio or electronics related.
Electronic gadgets, we'd like to see them. We could even
trains.
do some unboxings. I didn't say
trains.
trains. I didn't say trains.
No, I did though.
I didn't say trains.
We must mention trains.
I didn't say trains.
But I did. Whatever, yeah, just send us some fun stuff and we'll be here next Wednesday. We'll tell you in a moment, a little while, what we're going to be doing next Wednesday as well, because you'll definitely be able to be involved and interact being our last show of the year. Can't believe we're saying that. Anyway, for ages now, we've been running a competition which we call What on Earth is This? And last week we asked you, what on earth is this? Now, I don't know if Mark's got an idea, but don't say it, Mark, yet, because we've got some answers. But see if you can tell. That's the picture that we send out and we show on this show, and we also put on the website. Ooh. So I don't know if there've been any guesses online. I guess if you can be very, very fast on your fingers, and you could submit what you think that is. But starting with Tammy reading out the first of the guesses that for people who emailed us.
Yep, Simon M0SIH says, the item featured on What on Earth is This is a mini camera tripod. Legs can be attached or it can be clamped to a table, etc. The screw which attaches to the camera is an L Whitworth fitting.
Chris G0SQK says, I think this week's mystery object might be a bracket that attaches to the edge of a desk to hold an angle poise style lamp.
Okay, Tom Miller, GXQD, says, with that camera mount, this is a clamp for securing an old non-phone camera to something.
NevM0NFY, I always dread his entries now. This week's mystery object is clearly a G-clamp that fits to the side of a sewing machine to assist in keeping the material held taut while stitching. It even has a metal cap container built in to keep your spare needles safe. One week it's going to be a sewing machine. This member always writes in and says it's something to do with the sewing machine.
Oh, really? He said it's sewing machine. It's got to be right one day.
Exactly. I think that's his thinking. Yes.
John G0MXN says, object is similar to one I have for holding a laser device on top of fence panels and roof beams to check for levels. Also like a camera holder used for telephoto pictures.
And Michael 2E0SZP says, I think the picture of this week's mystery is basically a G-clamp with a tripod end on the top, which allows you to mount your camera, and you can then screw it up to a bench, gate or branch, basically anything you can attach a tripod to. It's a very clever piece of kit, as you don't have to carry around a tripod. And so
we have had a couple
reveal what it was.
We have had a couple
have you?
of
Okay.
Yeah, John 2E0TWQ says, is it a sewing machine? And Mike G8EEY says, is it a writer's cramp?
Is it a what?
A writer's cramp.
What is it? Oh.
Right. No,
I don't know what that is.
No.
Well, Tammy, it's time to reveal what it is or was.
I can reveal that it is a mini camera tripod. There you go. So well done.
And sent to us by Peter M0VRA. And it really is a very useful, versatile thing. As you can see, that bottom tripod stand comes out of it. It's actually all built into it. So that just looked like a simple G-clamp. I think all of that stuff was in there. So a great thing to carry around if you're on holiday and that sort of thing, when you're trying to travel light maybe. So Peter, thank you very much indeed for sending that picture in to us. I guess it's time to find out what on earth it is for this week. So let's find out. What on earth do you think this is?
Interesting.
What on earth is this? Don't say, Mark, but have you any ideas?
It's a part of a sewing machine.
Really?
No.
You're obsessed now. Everybody's obsessed. Okay, well, as always, we'll be putting this on the newsletter and on our website. And we will reveal all next Wednesday. It'll be the 29th of December then, and tell you what that is. If you know, though, drop us an email to radio@dcpmicro.com and we'll reveal what that is next week. So just to quickly tell you then what's happening this week at the club. Well, on Saturday, yes, I know that's Christmas Day, but Nigel 2E0NLK says he's up for running a Christmas night net. So on Christmas Day evening, if you've got nothing else to do and you want to go on to GB3MB at 7:30, if you want to join in with Nigel and others, then you can join on a Christmas night net. On Monday, the 27th of December, we've got the Monday night net with host John M0VCX. And at 8:30, we've got the 80-meter CW net on 3.543 megahertz. And next Wednesday, here, the 29th of December, well, how else do we end the year? But with a review of the year. And we hope you'll join us for that. And not only just joining us, and we'll be putting out a Zoom invitation, so you'll be able to join us as well on screen and both video and audio. But also, we would love to hear from you in advance of your favourite bits of the year. We'll have done 52 NARC Lives since the last time we did it, and none of us had any idea we'd be doing it this long. But there must be some favourite bits. Maybe they were favourite talks, they were favourite bits that we did, maybe favourite funny bits, maybe not so funny bits, favourite projects or things like that. Please drop us a line with those. We do need those in advance. It will be no good asking on the night. We've got a visitor, I think. In a moment.
I'll put her back in.
No, it's all right. It's all right, Mark. We've got Mark's dog, I think, is wanting to join in, and it's absolutely fine. Anyway, so that's what's happening next week. We're calling it Review of the Year, but it's a very informal affair. You'll all be able to join in, as I said, with Zoom if you wish. But most of all, we want to know in advance by Wednesday, the absolute latest, but ideally before. If there's a particular project or something that we featured a talk or anything, we would love to know in advance what that is, and we'll dig that out of about 100 hours of television recordings that we've got, and we'll be able to play it, a bit of it, an extract next week and talk about it. But it'll be a very informal evening, post-Christmas, pre-New Year, and we hope you'll join us for that. Mark's gone to... I know. Mark's also gone out with a wireless mic, I guess. So he's probably gone out of range.
We can hear him calling the dog.
Oh, can he?
Yeah.
I hope he realises. It won't be one of those... I'm sure Mark's much more proficient at television and things. He'll know that he mustn't go into loo or anything with those. But anyway, Mark will be back here very shortly. As always, do tell us about anything you'd like to do. It's too late to send a Christmas card, I'm afraid, this year. Obviously now. But if you want us to send a regular one of our NARC cards, then please drop us a line to this address, radio@dcpmicro.com. Mark's just getting back in and readjusting himself, ready for this. So we're now on to our main event. You've already met him briefly at the beginning of the show. Mark Stuckey, as you're going to have heard him referred to on the repair shop. He's obviously the reason that we've got to know him. But did you know that Mark's a radio amateur? But most of all, we want to find out what Mark's done in the rest of his life. So now let's meet Mark. Let's wait for Kevin to adjust the camera. This is Mark's workshop.
Yeah.
And welcome, by the way, to NARC Live, Mark.
Thank you. Nice to be here with you.
Lovely to be here. And I mean, I'm sure most of us, when we've seen the repair shop, we never dreamt that you were a radio amateur as well, although maybe some of the things that you fixed, we shouldn't be surprised.
It's funny, actually. It's interesting because we've recently been discussing about trying to get an amateur radio type concept for the repair shop, where I would do a repair and then we'll have a live link on the bands.
So is that an invitation to anybody watching? If they've got an old transceiver or something?
Actually, that would be a good idea because they're actually trying to find something like that. So
really?
If someone's got maybe just a receiver or transceiver, older style rather than modern digital technology, because I'm more of an analog chappie than digital. But yeah, that would be really good. And then,
there you go. There's an offer.
Yeah. But it has to have sorry to interrupt you.
No.
It has to have a good story behind it. You can't just say, I'll pick this up from a second-hand shop and then they say, well, what's it mean to you? Well, I'd like to get it fixed, wouldn't I?
Right.
It has to have an emotional attachment. Maybe it was the father's, some relative, something like that, and I'm sure there'll be loads of those around somewhere.
So that's the sort of thing the producers will be looking for.
That's what they will be looking for. Yeah.
Well, Mark, we're going to talk a lot about the repair shop later. And of course, at home, as always, you can ask questions of Mark live on BATC or Facebook. Just drop them in there and then Tammy will read them to us either during or straight afterwards. But first, I thought it would be nice to talk about Mark, the engineer, Mark, the person. Okay. And then we go right back to when did you get started in this?
Right, okay.
In engineering, repairs and that sort of thing. How long
have you got?
Well, we've got a while. We're okay. We're comfortable here in your workshop.
Right, okay. How it all started, I've always had an interest in science. In fact, the very one person who really got me interested may sound daft, was Doctor Who. Now, why? Well, Doctor Who, he knew everything. Whatever was the problem, he would know how to fix it. And I thought, wow, as a small child of 5 years of age, I'd like to be someone like that. Well, obviously you can't. But what you can do is you get a bit older, you start to go into a niche area. And electronics, physics, etc., was something which I always, appealed to me. And a friend of mine, when I left school at the age of 15, my parents had to move around a bit, so my schooling wasn't particularly good. Every time I went to a different school, which was every maybe 2 or so years, they had a different curriculum, and therefore what I was learning was irrelevant, which was rather embarrassing. So I left at 15, and my father, being an engineer, put me into an engineering company in Bedfordshire, which I hated. A friend of mine...
And when you mean engineering, you mean the mechanical engineering, right? Okay.
Yeah, mechanical engineering, oil, lathes, milling machines.
Yeah.
Very important, I appreciate, but it wasn't for me. And a friend of mine was working at, then where were loads of them, a local TV and radio repair shop on the little corner. And I was fascinated by it, seeing all these things, all this technology around you. They used to stay open until 10 o'clock at night. So I finished work. I used to go and pop in. They said, look, if you're really enthusiastic about it, well, you're welcome to come back. So I used to go home, have my tea, come back. And I used to work there till 10 o'clock each night, slowly learning aspects of it. And I think after about 6 months, they said, well, look, would you like a job? Yahoo! Yes, please. And I turned from there. Again, this was in the 70s. So a lot of corner shops didn't last too long, because the rental market had changed, etc., etc. People were buying; they were becoming more reliable.
I remember when I was a kid in the sort of early 70s, late 60s, people did. My parents rented things then because they were relatively unreliable, weren't they? Early electronics.
Oh yeah, that's why you used to often see a repair van on every corner.
So there was quite a lot of a big market.
There was an incredibly large market, and eventually that market petered out because electronics have become, well, as soon as you took away valves, which created large amounts of heat, and heat was the biggest devastating factor to an electronic circuitry, then they become more reliable, and therefore you wasn't needed anymore.
But you said you came from an engineering, although you didn't like it, you were working in engineering.
Yes. Yeah.
So where did you get the knowledge from to go to a TV repair shop then, or a radio repair shop?
I didn't. I just literally knocked on the door, said, look, I really would love to learn about this. And they gave me the opportunity to, well, which way around do you hold a screwdriver, and start from the very
What age
basic.
were you then?
15.
Oh, right. That's when you went to the electronics.
Yeah.
Wow.
Literally.
So you really have been doing it that long.
So, a little while now. But then what happened was that all changed quite a lot, as I said. And therefore, I went to another little company doing sort of dictation machines, etc. It wasn't sort of particularly exciting. And then I had an opportunity to work for a large company which they did military stuff. And I thought, that sounds much more entertaining, more fun. So they actually then sort of allowed me to do my physics degree there. So they paid for all that. And then I was working on quite highfalutin. I worked on Britain's atomic weapon, how to not make it go bang, numerous different types of weapons, some interesting, some rather nasty, if you like, because the concept, as the decades went by, before an army wished to stop another army instantly, then the philosophy had changed. Well, we don't want to stop them, we want to maim them. And we had to come up with a thing. It was, I can't actually probably mention the name, but it was where you had a shell which could be fired from any artillery, be it a tank or a gun. And as it would go over an advancing army, it would literally, you'd have a nuclear fusion. Neutrinos would come out of the shell casing and it would damage human tissue. So it would slow them down. So I worked on lots of things relating to that, and the tornado and thing. So I did all that aspect of it. But then it all changed again because Margaret Thatcher decided to do competitive tendering at the time, which meant that any sort of organisation which had really developed this concept or a concept in electronics, then suddenly they said, well, no, the one who does it the cheapest will get it, which in theory sounds a good idea from the taxpayer's point of view. But the problem lied was where that everybody who was saying, well, we're tender for that, but they had no idea how to do it. So they were getting it, say, for half the price, but they couldn't complete it.
So it all came down to money,
totally.
Not necessarily a capability.
No, totally money. It was purely that. And there were a number of factors which, created sort of real problems, etc. But I had some great, amazing times working in the Cloak and Dagger. side of things, you know, where we'd, you know, go to Aldermaston where they turn plutonium and all this sort of stuff. So, and watching tornadoes do certain.
But you weren't working for the military themselves.
No, I was
so you were
working
working
for the
private
company.
industry.
Yes,
Doing
yes.
this sort of
But
work.
we had an MI5 card,
Right.
and the idea was if we took any part of the weapon out, and you got stopped by the police, you showed them, they had to walk away. You couldn't touch it. And one of the guys actually, what he did, he took it out, took the card, drove like some lunatic through some town, got stopped by the police, showed them the card, they had to walk away, but it was reported and he was up on the coals the next day because he had no reason why he should be using it.
Just a bit like putting your blues on if you didn't really
yeah. But yeah, so we had great fun. We had good fun. So yeah, I worked on all that sort of side of it.
And what roughly when was this?
This
the
was
80s
in the
then,
80s.
or?
Yeah, the 80s, yeah.
So you were in your 20s then?
Oh, well, yeah, I had hair.
I know what you mean.
Yes, long time ago, but I remember I did have hair then. Yes. So yeah, so that was, you know, quite interesting, exciting time for each sort of youngish lad to be working and all this highfalutin sort of field electronics, weaponry of all different types. Even from I worked at thing partially with Marconi instruments called Stingray, which was a very clever torpedo which would actually go through all these types of vessels and identify the signature of one only. So we had all that sort of stuff, and even working on the idea of laser, you know, laser pointed guided missiles, which of course the diffraction index of moisture wasn't making them very successful.
I mean, Mark, you these are wonderful things you've been involved with, but you haven't mentioned any formal training so far. College, university, or anything?
The,
you did do that?
The physics degree.
Right, okay.
I did, originally did the City and Guilds Electronics, the ONC, HNC.
Okay, so you have got some formal background.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you wouldn't let you loose on them.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering, but
Yes. So, yeah, I did all the sort of original training, and then they give you sort of carte blanche to play around with ideas and concepts. So it was quite good. Really.
So were you at the? I know you can't probably talk about some of the details even now. Yeah. But you know, were you in the position where you were creating and developing some of these things?
Yeah,
I mean, this is all new stuff.
Oh yeah, we was creative. In fact, my boss was the most highly educated person relating to explosives in this country. You know, if you wanted a bang, he would know how to do one, be it from the smallest to the biggest. And so, yeah, we used to work together on sort of ideas and things. And to see. So, yeah, it was quite intriguing. Yeah.
So how long did that carry on for? And what came next?
What came next? I got out of the whole industry and went into the film industry.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Want to change. Life's too short.
So roughly when you in 30s then, maybe?
I guess, I would... just trying to think. Probably that would lead me into probably about the 90s then. I was but yeah, I was coming into about sort of 38, something in that order, I guess.
Okay. And so when you talk about film industry, what aspect of it? Behind the camera, front of the camera?
Both. I've actually did a bit of everything, but I sort of worked on like Red Dwarf, with the sort of the animation
fan
stuff. Oh, okay.
I know that. And,
did that.
Tammy back in the studio at least.
Because we did that. We did the stuff I was working on was at Bray Studios. Pinewood, they did all the other parts of it. Shepperton was where they actually had their main offices there. So I did that for
when you say you did that, what did you do? Special effects?
Yeah, the special effects, the animation, 3D animation, all the rest of it. So I sort of did all that. And then I worked for finance in films, raising finance for films, worked for the Hitchcocks. So I did all that. And then at the end of the day, I said, I've had enough now. They say when you say the film industry or whatever, or what's it? No, not industry. What's the better word for it? The sort of entertainment it is a business at the end. Yeah. Forget
entertainment.
You've got to think that you're there. It's there to make money. If you don't make the money, then you don't eat. So therefore, and a lot of projects are long term, talking like not just months, can be years, but you've got to finance that while you're trying to hopefully develop projects. So it was quite a game, quite a cutthroat situation. And I also used to go around the record companies and we used to try to raise to get our studio to get the sort of the work for the film promos, like for music videos, etc. Did all that as well. So it's a combination, a bit of everything, really. So it was all good fun, but, there comes a point thinking, I've had enough of this. And ironically, there were some friends of ours, they bought a place in Aylsham, obviously in Norfolk. And they
should have asked, actually, where were you? But
I should have asked Bedfordshire.
Bedfordshire, okay, right.
And they used to say, it's fantastic up in Norfolk, you'll love it. Well, I was always busy. And I said, well, after about 4 years of living there, we thought, let's go up and have a look. So I literally went up on the Friday, came back on the Sunday, and I had the house up for sale on the Monday. I just jacked everything in, I've originally moved to Bordwell and thought, right, okay, what am I going to do? I'll find something. In fact, actually, I thought I like antiques, but I don't have enough knowledge. And I also like musical instruments. And I thought I could restore pianos. So I met a chap in Hitchin who taught me the concepts. And I was French polishing grand pianos. I did some for Houghton Hall and stuff like that. But that market changed again. And you think, oh, well, come on, think of something else. I know, why don't I do what I started? Working on electronic items. Now they're vintage, classic. They're smaller, don't need so much room. So I've gone round in one big circle. And that was it.
So did you move here then when you were talking about you moved to Norfolk? Or was that, you said Elsham, I think?
Yeah, Baldwell.
Baldwell, okay.
Yeah,
right.
I had a workshop in Baldwell, which was doing the pianos at the time.
Yeah, all right.
And then when I moved this area to Cromer, I thought, I'm going to put these workshops up and do what I used to know, which was, comfortable, and you can work from home. You're not having to depend on anybody else. You don't know, well, if I don't get any money in, that's my fault. I can't blame anybody else. So it was that, really. I thought, well, that's, life's too short.
But you've done a heck of a lot of different things in that time.
You've got to try to do as much as you possibly can while you can.
Yeah.
And again, that's back to this concept of the Doctor Who. I know it sounds really stupid, but, a little boy influenced by this time-travelling chap who knew everything. Well, I want to know everything. No, you haven't got time to do it. I can't live as many lives as a Time Lord could, but I'll do the best I possibly can. And that was it, really.
And that's where that's when you started then a business.
Yes.
Professionally restoring.
Yeah, vintage and classic. Well, not just radios, televisions, record players, tape recorders, amplifiers, and any combination of such.
So what just trying to get a feel of time, when did this sort of happen? Was this 90s or into the 2000s?
No, this is 2000.
Right,
this is probably sort of, I don't know, probably about 14 years ago, 15 years ago.
So that's when you moved here and you set up this
absolutely
radio repair shop. Actually, we have, I know you've not asked us to mention this or anything, but I think it's important that we share with everybody at home that if you're interested in anything like this or the services that Mark's offered, we've got a website, I think, Tammy, haven't we, which you can put up on the screen now. This is where you can find out more about Mark's business. I think Tammy will probably put that up on the screen in any moment now.
Just give me 1 second.
Sorry, okay. Sorry to spring that on you, but I thought it would be a good time to do it. I just didn't want to forget. It's classicradioshop.info, isn't it?
I think just put classic radio shop. You'll find me. There's not too many of us in the company.
No, definitely not.
There's not too much competition.
The front page, I remember I looked when I was doing a bit of homework yesterday on it, and there were some pictures of the old Ever-Ready batteries.
Oh, yeah.
As well, the classics, which must be difficult to get hold of.
Well, actually, that's funny you say that, because what happened, because obviously, in any type of restoration, whatever, you also buy and sell. And I bought a little dual case radio, as they call them, and it had original 90 volt, 1.5 volt battery.
So just for everybody or younger people who don't know, the 90 volts is for the high voltage.
Yeah.
And then we needed the smaller one for the filament,
heaters.
wasn't it?
Yeah, for the heaters, yes. Because, we had little miniature valves, which, and people sometimes when they get these, they wire them up. They say, I can't see the valve glowing. 1.5 volts, you're not going to, and they're directly heated. So they're very straight on, just like a transistor, really. But yeah, so I saw these and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be nice to reproduce them? So that's what I did. I reproduced them. There's a local print shop here. I get all originals, open them all up, and then they print them, and then I've put modern ones inside, and I've sold them all over the world. And I do quite a range now. Normally every Sunday I'm making batteries for somebody.
Really? We did have your website. It's just gone off the screen, actually.
Yeah.
But we have put your website on the screen.
No, so...
Because that must be one of the problems of keeping old radios and televisions, and particularly radios, though, going, is getting those old batteries. I imagine you can't buy a new 90-volt battery anymore.
No, you can't. So, so obviously anybody with a little bit of understanding the basic putting 9-volt batteries in series together, you get 10, you get 90 volts, and if you find a way to work it, you can fit 10 in an original B126 box.
Really?
Yeah. So and it works really well, and that was very popular because a lot of people, non-technically minded, were buying, these items, from charity shops, etc., or they had one at home, which has always been in the family, but they had no way of knowing how to use it.
No.
And I supplied the batteries, and then they could again. So they had a lot of fun.
So in your company then now, you
Yes.
offered a service for if you've got an older type,
Yeah.
what is it, radio, tape recorders?
It can be, to be honest, with the repair shop, I've diversed off to things I never thought I'd ever
I mean,
do.
in the back of this workshop, we
Yeah.
probably can't show you just now, but that's a telecine machine, isn't it?
That's a 35mm cinema projector.
Yeah. Oh, right. Is it?
Yeah, I've had loads of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I've sort of had. There's still an imprint of a large Cayley there.
Yes.
You know, so yes, I do those as well.
Or when we use a handheld camera in a little while, we'll try and get a picture of that.
Yes.
So that really is quite diverse. Is there anything that's got electronics in it that you wouldn't touch? Is there something that you wouldn't?
Only if it's digital.
Okay.
Because I've come from the old school.
So analog electronics, basically.
Analog, electromechanical, etc. Fine. But when it comes to digital, that is something which I'm not so au fait on. I remember learning at the time when single chip micros were coming out, and I had to go on a course about them, but I never got that far with them. And let's be honest, human nature, we stick in our own comfort zone.
Oh, yes.
And as you get older, you don't want to learn something new.
No, absolutely. No, there's no. So look, Mark, when we came in tonight and,
Yes.
and to see these,
Yeah.
to see you, you've got this radio on here.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure.
We've got a wide shot of it at the moment. And
This
if you can, we'll both, I'll sort of turn
that
around
out
here
the
and
way.
have a look at it.
Yeah.
And then Kevin's going to get a close-up, got a close-up camera. We'll be able to have a closer look at it.
Unplug these bits off for a minute. Yeah, this is a radio from 1947. It's called RAP radio, and it's because it's called Radio Acoustic Products. And this company from London, you know, were producing radios like this. And the first thing, which is pretty obvious, it's actually chromed. Now, this was designed, a radio to be seen. And now they did two versions. They did a floor standing model, which never really understood if you had a floor standing model, it was going to go in a corner, you're not going to see it. But the tabletop model had a glass panel, and therefore you could walk around it and see all these glowing and all this reflection with all this chrome, even the loudspeakers chrome as well. An amazing little thing, really.
And has someone brought this to you to repair?
Basically they'd had some work done on it some time ago, and they were using it, and suddenly there was this one heck of an explosion, massive amounts of smoke, and the result was that this smoothing capacitor literally discharged itself rapidly. What they should have done is replaced it at the time. And that's an interesting film, just so you know if it's got a date stamp on it. No, often these do, so you can actually tell when these were put in, but this one doesn't, which is a shame.
So there's 8 microphones.
Yeah, 8 microfarads. Yes. Yeah. Paper. Look at that. Wow.
And I bet the paper was everywhere.
Well, actually, if you look in here, you can still see remnants of where it decided. If I do that, it might make it easier.
Help you hold it.
That's it. You can see here where the splatter, it's literally because it's gone bang and blown everywhere. So I've changed some of the wiring, I've changed some of the components, but it's now fully functional. But what you need to do, of course, next is to soak test it, which means you leave it on for a number of hours to make sure that it's stable. I monitor current as well as voltage to make sure there's no funny things going on. So it's... And when you consider, manufacturers, in this country alone, they were literally originally in the early days of radio, hundreds working from like garages, making crystal sets originally, first of all. And we had a massive market. And what people don't appreciate is that we talk about how quick computers are developed, we've now super fast. Radios, in theory, developed from the TRF, tuned radio frequency, to super heterodyne in such a short time that literally made computers look like they were so slow in their development. So the radio development was much faster. And like all things in life, the only thing which creates that is commercial value. If there's commercial value in something, then a lot of money is going to be put in to develop rapidly and increase. And then, of course, all right, you've now got the radio. Well, that's fine, but then how does the manufacturer make another one? Well, they constantly then, maybe each year, 6 or 7 new models, trying to make you spend your next money, in the same way as we've talked about the mobile phone. Oh, so last year, that's what they were doing with radios. All this whole idea of sales pitch is not new. These guys come up with it first. And the interesting, funny thing about it as well is, how do you buy something from somebody do you trust? It's like, for example, we talk about if you buy a car, would you buy a car from that person? Well, it very interestingly, Murphy, he had a massive factory over in Welwyn Garden City. And he did two good things, really. First of all, up to his time, which we're looking round about really 30s and the 40s, people generally, and this was often ladies, would be making the manufacturing in production lines. They would only be used maybe 2 or 3 months in a year as an average. So therefore, their work was very up and down. He decided to change his concept of manufacture and manufacture throughout the whole year. So therefore, these people were gainfully employed. Therefore, he expected their loyalty and worked both ways, which was really good. Secondly, though, which is rather interesting, which today we would find incredibly hard to understand, why did Murphy do so well? Well, he made radio sets at a price which an average person could afford because they were expensive. And that's why we have so many examples of them. They were looked after, treated with respect and kept, even if they failed. But he had a pipe. And his adverts were him with the pipe. He's a chap you can trust. And that's his sales pitch.
Isn't it? My goodness me.
Now, today, someone's smoking a cigarette. You think,
that would be the opposite.
Yeah. So the philosophy on how to convey or trust this person, trust my product, I'll look after you, was very intriguing. And as I say, all the modern ideas of trying to promote and push a new product to market is not new. It's all been done before. These guys on the radios did it first. We're just a poor relation following an example. So it's quite interesting, yes.
When you're trying to repair some of this really quite old equipment now,
yes,
we saw some of the older resistors, the carbon composition type resistors and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you presumably you replace them with more modern equivalents?
You do, yes. What you do now, this is always a thing. Now you have certain people, like even on the program when I'm doing a repair on TV, they'll go, "Oh, you've just changed all the components." Anybody can do that. But the trouble is, we have to look at it from two levels here. Now, if you, as a lone individual, and I've done it in the past, you get an item, you turn it on, see what's wrong. Oh, that problem needs replacing, or that component needs replacing, and you work through it. And at the end, yes, you feel proud. It's taken you 8 hours, but you got there at the end. But on a commercial basis, someone's paying you to sort this out. The cost of components today are pennies. It's easier to carte blanche replace all the known problems which you're going to get across, because a capacitor undoubtedly will not be as efficient anymore, or it may often have gone leaky. So why try to fault find it? Just replace them. And then you've got a good start to, by the time you turn this on, you hopefully are 60 or 70% of the way there. And generally, most electronic components of this sort of period will be age-related rather than actual direct faults. So therefore, it's wise to change, the known capacitors which are going to fail.
Yeah.
You can check some of the resistors. Some resistors will certainly go high. Some will go open circuit. Some of those you invariably will find when you turn it on. But the capacitors are known to leak. And therefore, that will damage the HT circuit, et cetera, even possibly damage the valves. So why not just replace those now before you start, rather than trying to work through it? So you can therefore do your repair in maybe an hour, not 8 hours. That's better for your client. Saves you time. You can get on with the next one. So, but there are still the old school. No, I wouldn't do it that way. But we've all got our own ideas and our own ways.
Well, Mark, we've come a long way seeing how you started and all the different things you've done.
Yes.
I think we can't go further now in this interview without now talking about the
repair shop.
Because that's how we've got to find out about you.
Yes,
Of course, how lots of people who are watching have found out about you. Before I ask you about this, just a reminder to everybody at home now, you can ask questions of Mark now. Well, ask them during this interview now, and we will be certainly asking them at the end, or any others, any that need to be asked during as well. Tammy will read out as well. Yeah, so don't forget to do that.
I do have, there is just one comment from Tony, G0SQK. He says, "Hi Mark, I've repaired several Eddystone valve receivers as part of my collection. I've seen smoothing capacitors in that state blown apart. I usually remove the innards and fur, innards and fur, and fit modern components inside the aluminium can. I just wondered if you do the same to keep the authentic look."
No, that's a very good question. And the answer from my side, generally no. not because it's a great idea. It is a brilliant idea, and the purists who love their radios and want to keep them authentic will spend that time. And so I live in a commercial world, and therefore, unless the client particularly wants me to keep that sort of authenticity as its overall look, I would just change for a modern counterpart, only because it's quicker, and therefore, if it's quicker, it's got to be cheaper. But I know many people who do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great idea, but it does take quite a considerable amount of time. And if I said to, for example, a client, well, look, if you want me to change, say, those sort of capacitors, and you want me to empty it out and put modern counterparts and refit them, and that's going to maybe like it's going to cost you an additional, say, £100, just to say, or I just change those components, and changing those basic components is going to cost you £10. What would you like me to do?
Yeah.
And invariably, £90 saving is normally a very good idea. My other thing is certain radios are visible to be seen, and yes, authenticity is great. Now, normally, if I had, for example, a capacitor or something on the top here, I would invariably keep it in situ. I may disconnect it electronically, but it will still be present. I wouldn't remove it, because then, yes, you're losing some of its originality, and you try to maintain that. But invariably, unless you have got the time, it does come back to cost. And most people, with a few exceptions, would prefer the cheaper option than more expensive. And the other thing is, by the time you put a radio or an electrical item together, unless it's something like this where it's being physically visible, let's be honest, you're not going to really see it. But I do understand the reason behind it. And as I said, I validate that. It's a great idea if you've got the opportunity to spend the time to do it.
All right, well, keep those questions coming in at home. So, Mark, now the golden question I want to start with is,
yes,
we can see what you've been doing. You've built up a successful business repairing and this sort of thing. How did you get approached, or how did you get involved with the repair shop?
Yeah, very simple. You don't go to them. In fact, when I was first approached over 3 years ago, and I didn't even know who they were.
Because I believe that, I did do a bit of research as well, and it started in 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was a BBC2 programme in the afternoon.
Exactly.
Wasn't it?
So most people working probably wouldn't see it.
Right.
And in some ways that was good, because I had no expectation, except one problem. I thought, like you guys here, you come to me. And they phoned me up and said, do you do transistor radios? I said, yeah, I can do a transistor radio, no problem. Fine, good. Went away. Came back, and then my wife had to be the cameraman, and we had to do like a little trial run of me talking on screen to see how.
So how did they? But how did they? When they said do you do transistor radios? They introduced themselves as the production company. They'd been commissioned already. Ricochet. Okay.
Ricochet was the production company. It was Sean, who then was an associate producer.
Okay.
And she said, "Look, hello, Mark. We've got this transistor radio."
How did they find you, Mark?
They just found me. Just found me
on the internet or whatever.
Yeah,
okay.
Something like that. And because there's obviously not too many of us around, so competition is not too big. And I said, yeah, okay, I can do that. And as I said, naively thinking, oh yeah, they'll come here, no problem. No, you have to go 220 miles from here to there, down in near Chichester, the South Down and Weald Museum. And I thought, well, it'd be a bit of fun to do it. And I sort of went down there, and I did the one. You'd no rehearsal. I was on the bench waiting, and Jay said, oh, Mark, there's something for you. Up you go. You're on. It's now down to you. You don't get any sort of concept.
Really?
No, absolutely not.
But how do you go prepared if you're doing it there?
Yes. Now, that's the next thing. Yes. Now, when it comes to, I will get a link to show me, like somebody's, is asked, for example, this to be repaired. I will see the link, and I'll see the picture, the video, what the contributors talking about it, and then I'll have to ascertain then, right, what am I going to need to do that job? If I think it could be a little bit of a problem, I'll get them to bring a courier to drop it off to me to look at it. Not allowed to touch it. Nothing must be undertaken unless it's on camera.
Really?
Yeah. So you are working fairly cold, and you have to do your best guess, because nobody down there is going to know what you're going to need. All the equipment you need, you have to take with you. All the components you think you're going to need, you need to take with you. Now, I'd rather take the whole workshop.
Absolutely.
But I can't do that. So you have to do, hopefully, touch wood, you get it right. And that's how it's worked. Literally.
So it's very genuine then. Well, when we see you do a repair.
Yes. Oh, yes, it's genuine.
I mean, I just thought there would be, not that it wouldn't be genuine, but that you'd have a lot of time to look at it first. I'm going to need those resistors, those capacitors, whatever. How do you go prepared enough for that? If you're trying to, say, repairing something like that.
It's experience. Okay. Let's be honest, you can gauge to some degree, from what you've done in the past as to what your expectation is. Obviously, you're not expected to go down there, 3 days, you come back, job's done. It could be you found a problem. I need to order that part. Then you come back and then you get the part, or they'll order it for you if you tell them what you want, and then it's delivered down at the barn. But yeah, and that's why I've had this conversation in the past with them, which they're now doing, is that I do a number of items at the same time. So just like in a real workshop, right, no, that one's a bit tricky. I'm going to leave that for a minute. I'll get over to this one. I'll do that one, because there's nothing worse. You're stuck with one item and you've got a mental block, or we have one of those days where nothing's going to go right. We've all had it. And where before you could walk away and leave it to another day, in a production basis for television, you are stuck with it. You've got to find a way out. And invariably, one of the biggest problems today is when I was young, there was always somebody, Keith knew that, old Bob knew that these old boys knew everything, every trick in the book. You now look behind you, there's nobody there to ask. It's only you. You're now considered the expert. And you're thinking, well, how am I going to do this? So they can be quite...
It's really amazing, though. So you get there, you've maybe been shown a link with a bit of video about what you're going to fix. That gives you an idea of what test equipment to bring,
yes, yeah,
what are components that you might going to need to fix it.
Yeah.
But then you're on your own and the cameras are rolling. And
yeah. Ta-da!
That is really not how... I don't know if you at home, that's the way you felt, but I felt it would be a little bit more magic of television, as it were, that they give you a chance to have a good look at it first.
Well, you can have a look at it before camera, obviously, but you can't do anything.
Fix it there.
Oh, yeah.
So none of it is done away from the cameras, as it were?
Rarely. Sometimes you have a real problem. You may have to bring certain bits back just because of time scale, but that's rare. It's a factual program, and you have to therefore be factual, and you can't tell.
You've got to be honest, of course, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everything has to be done there.
But when you watch the program, obviously you're not seeing the whole thing, because I presume something like this would take you many, many hours.
Yeah, in fact, that's interesting. You said that. Yes. Now, you said, like, how long would it take you if I got that come in and I need to do everything to it? How long would that take me to do? Well, normally something like that, I would probably have it from zero working to fully operational in probably 4 or 5 hours. Now, on camera time is like film time. It's incredibly... You're waiting. You're waiting. Because see, when we do an arrival or reveal, we have as an average 5 cameras. All those cameras are used for that.
So we can help picture this at home. So there's this massive barn, isn't it? You said,
well, yeah, it's
quite drafty. And
very drafty, very cold.
And there are several experts presumably in there at any one time.
Oh, yeah, we could have 8 or 9 of us, yeah.
Right, but at the point when you're going to have the contributor come in,
yes,
who's going to bring their thing to be repaired,
we then dominate all the cameras and sound.
That's right.
And therefore, everybody else, if they've got something to do on camera, stop. You can't do it. So you could have someone come in, which does happen, and they could be there half a day, 3/4 of a day, and they've not even got a camera because it's being used for everything else. But you have to be there for when they're ready to use you.
But presumably you can't start repairing things then, or anything when you do it, because they want to get it on film. Is that right?
That is true, unless it's something either if you're changing a resistor, how many resistors do you want to see changed?
Right,
just the one.
Yeah.
So you can therefore change all the rest. You can do some of the rewiring, but you can't do all of it. The director decides what does he want to see. Even if you think that you don't want to see that, I want to see that. You say, well, fair enough, I think it's a waste of time, but that's it. And then you do all this lovely work. And then when it comes to the edit, you think, where's the half has that gone? And it doesn't get shown. It's because, obviously it's roughly 15 minutes total from start to finish and in between. And now when you consider, when we have a contributor come in, a typical arrival time's about an hour and a half.
So what happens? Can we take a typical day then?
Yeah, sure.
What time in the morning do you arrive?
We have to be on set at 8:15. The crew have to be there at 8.
Right.
Therefore, get everything set up. Then, depending on what's going on, typically we may start doing an arrival or reveal at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, so you start that, but you're getting all your stuff, you're working away, and then of course say, oh, can you stop that for a minute? All right, bang, 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 or wee noises. No, can't do that thing. Oh, heck. Here we go. Got delays. And then you have to allow that to go through. And then you say, like, I need a camera. Right, we're just doing so-and-so at the moment. I'll come to you in a minute. And then you'll either have 1 or 2 camera crews will join you, maybe with sound if need be, or separate. So we can have maybe 2 or 3 of us doing things in the barn at the same time.
Doing completely different projects.
Yeah, totally
they're like going to have to stitch that all together later.
Yes, yeah.
Continuity and things like that. When you go down there, typically, let's just take this because it's a reasonable example. How many days would you be down there?
Right, we have camera days now, and we have the same discussion with Ricochet. Well, how many days is it going to take? Well, how many cameras can I have? And they said, well, no, don't look at it that way. I thought, well, okay, that would take probably 4, maybe 5 days camera.
And are they all consecutive? So you start on the Monday and you finish on the Friday?
It can be.
So you would try and do it in
you try to, but it doesn't always work that way because they may have other, experts coming in and they need that bench or they need something else. So you have to be a little bit flexible. Sometimes I've gone down there for 1 day to do a reveal. Then another time I've then been there for 2 weeks, solid. So it literally does vary. And that's the nature of this type of business. You have to be a little bit, your concept behind a normal work environment is not the same. It's a little bit different, and you have to work within that philosophy of that. Because at the end, what we're trying to do is to hopefully get somebody's expectation, their dream, brought back into reality. That's what's always behind you. Oh, I've got to get this done. How am I going to find a way? And everybody at the repair shop has all said the same thing. We've woken up 3 o'clock in the morning with a cold sweat thinking, how am I going to get myself out of this one? But we do work as a team. Though we may not have the expertise as like some of the other experts, we will always try to help each other. And there is a family there. And that really does come across.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, you've shown us a few things, John, we've shown camera, but of real fun things happening when the cameras aren't rolling.
Heck. Oh, we have loads. It is. And also, because it's got very popular, we have an area now which is shut off so the public can come down to a degree. And often they'll be there waiting and we'll come out and have a chat with them. And they love the programme. Sure, and there are people who've got certain interests like you have. And so, yes, it's really good. It's amazing to think how many people have really gone to the programme and absolutely love it. Even the repeats are still like watching them again and again. Just a matter of interest, there's a repeat on tonight with me. The Christmas one, which I think is now finished. That was last year's Christmas one.
They wouldn't be watching that.
They'll be here.
This. Yeah,
you may have recorded it. Yes.
There's another one Christmas Eve.
There's another one Christmas. Yeah, one I did.
So you have never seen the repair shop. I don't know what we're talking about. BBC1 Christmas Eve. We'll put a plug in for them because because you used to have a look at it.
And then in January, I got some of the things through today. So I've done about 11 or 12 items, which I'm waiting for. And I think 3 or 4 of mine are on in January each week.
Good.
So because actually it's quite funny because when I'm down there, I often will give my mother a call. She lives around the corner, and my wife when I'm at the barn at lunchtime. And the amount of things I've done which haven't been shown yet, if I didn't have the technology to show where I was, I'm sure she's thinking I was having an affair. Because the last 6 months I've been down there, so I haven't seen anything.
Well, I mean, I'm going to let our viewers into the secret as well that you and I met several months ago now. We came and saw you. And we were trying to kind of pin a date down. But of course, this is your job. And you just couldn't pin it down. And we just hoped then, we thought this would be really good Christmas special. Yeah. And we managed to get here now.
It was funny. Yeah, it is, because like last week, I was meant to have been there. But because it's Omicron variant, they've decided that Warner Brothers own the whole lot. And they said that because of this now, we're not accepting any arrivals reveals. I was meant to go down to do a reveal of a particular
That's what you told
item.
me last. That's why we couldn't do it last week, isn't it?
Yeah. And they said, no, you're not coming down now because of that. So I'm back on, I think, the 4th or the 5th, assuming there's no lockdown.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm there for the week again.
So the producers, though, I guess, that, as you said earlier on, what's as important for the producers is the actual backstory, is the story behind it. It's not that there's a bit of equipment that you want fixed. It's why it's so special.
It has to be the story behind it. The item, this is the interesting point, really. Any item going into the barn, it could be worth £1. It could be worth £1 million. We're not worried. We don't care. But what we do care is the story behind it. If the story has got something which we feel will be of interest to the viewing audience, number one, of course, important to the person, the contributors brought it in, then that's what makes it. Purely that. So therefore, and of course, that's another good, interesting point. Ricochet let you get comfortable within your own home environment, i.e. working on items you're familiar with. Oh yeah, I could do that with my eyes closed. But then they go, can you do this? Never done one of those. Ooh, we'll give you one of those then. Can you
really?
do that?
Because I was going to ask you how much they consult with you. So if they're approached by somebody, they've got a brilliant backstory, great reason why. I mean, there was a jukebox, wasn't there, that you did?
Yes.
When I was looking back at some of the recordings.
Yeah, never done a jukebox before.
You've never done that before. So did they ask you first? They don't Right.
Oh, yeah. Have you done a jukebox? No. Would you like to do one? Sounds fun. You know, and ironically, the jukebox was the amount of filming done. You could have done a mini-series. I was warned, you do this, it'll hiccup on you. It'll hiccup. They were right. People who knew these things, it took me 3 times to take that whole thing apart and put it back together. And there was wires broken, and even the manual I got from America didn't tell me how the wires looms worked. I had to get someone else to help me and buzz it all out, because it was 100 record player or something, 100 sites. But when it was revealed, and that was, I did have sleepless nights. I seriously I looked ill, my wife told me. When it was revealed, it not only was fantastic for the chap, the contributor, but it literally went worldwide. It really hit a real thing. So there was a lot of hard work. It actually was worth it.
How long did that take to do? Do you remember? How many? Is it weeks?
I think it was more like 6 or 7 weeks.
And you would be going down there and doing all of the work there?
Yeah. No, yeah.
Never came up here to Norfolk?
No, only told me to have a quick look at it before.
Okay.
Just to see. And I've got another one there they want me to do. So, you know, once shy, I now know a bit more what to expect. But yeah. So there is a lot, of something like that, which is quite involved. And they've all had them, none of them are always straightforward and easy, and that's what's really nice, because the other thing about the repair shop, you have very like-minded individuals, all with their different skills, like Dom, who does all the mechanical stuff. Brilliant. And you'll look and watch and learn, I never thought of that. I'll do that idea next. And that tries to bring you up as well.
And you see, you do help each other as well when it comes down.
Yeah. I've helped Dom on certain projects.
Right.
He's helped me. And I've slowly been going through all the other experts. I think I'm doing something with Sonaz, who does the upholstery. Can't say what it is. I've Kirsten, worked with her now. Lucia, Will, Dom, of course.
Steve with the clocks and things, maybe?
Steve,
really?
Because
I thought the electronic stroke clocks might have come into contact
with
each other.
He had to do something, but he didn't need my assistance.
Okay.
So, there's just a couple you haven't actually worked. Oh, yeah, Brenton. We worked together on the chandelier, which was shown.
So how many things have you done now? How many things have you repaired? Do you know roughly?
30.
Oh, wow.
Might be more than that.
Because I haven't had the time to watch all of the bits you've been in. I've been looking at some of them.
Yeah, because the thing is, you look onto like YouTube, they show you some, they don't show you all.
No.
And even the BBC iPlayer only have a certain current amount. There's quite a few I've done. In fact, even I'm now trying to remember some of the things which I've done which haven't been shown yet. You forget. And it's always interesting to see how it's conveyed, because, as I mentioned earlier, the edit decide, and they don't know our technical skills, but that's a good reason, because they're looking at it from the uninitiated, the uneducated on that. Because let's be honest, the ones who are involved in radios, they want to know the ins and outs, but the repair shop's not for them. No. Open University does that, or I've forgotten, Horizon will go into depth.
Yeah,
but we're here to let it to follow through nice, comfortably, show some aspects of the work involved. But it's not really about us, or not really about that. That's why some people get frustrated. Well, I didn't see how you did that. Why did you do that? And so you can't always show everything. It's like the one I did, which has just been repeated tonight, the Christmas special from last year. This was a stereogram. Okay, nothing special about that, but the story behind it. Their father was the first coloured chap to have a record shop in and around an area of London. I can't remember the name. And then they also mentioned that his shop was on a road called Electric Avenue. As soon as I say that to anybody, they smile because they know immediately, oh, that song was about that shot.
Was it really?
Yeah, but the edit took it out. They didn't have time to show it.
Right.
And they were like, and this is the thing, I get to hear the whole story. It's like they were saying, oh, yeah, their father knew everybody in the music industry. They'd come home one Sunday for lunch, all the Eagles were around the table. This guy was amazing, you know. But of course, in a program which has only got a certain amount of time, you can't show it all. And that's a shame because there's loads of things there. I'm sure the audience would love to have seen and hear what we've heard, but never get the opportunity to do it. So that's a shame.
Has there been anything which you just haven't managed to fix?
Interesting. Yes, there have been things where you're thinking, where do I go from here? But never not finished. But we've had a couple of close calls. And there's one which is on in January, which I can't say. But yes, that was one. And it was a radio, I'll say that. And I was restoring it, doing this, doing that. And it's about 80 years old. And it started to come up, current was drawing. I could hear sound. I thought, great. Bang, pop, boom. I thought, what? The whole thing just went up, bang. I thought, what the heck am I going to do here? It was seriously just really went, and now it's after changing loads of components. But some of this is a problem. When you have an electronic device, where do you store it? Now, unfortunately, we have a habit of storing things in garages, in sheds, lofts, extreme heat and cold. And of course, very fine copper wire goes green, gets a green, breaks, or you find the queue of a coil, the ability to have it, you know, sort of peak, flattens off, so it's not as efficient as it used to be. That's another problem you suffer with. And also with certain old types of equipment, particularly the very early transistor radios, they were never very good in the first place. So you've got something and you're thinking, well, it's not very good because that's how it was, you know, and you're trying to bring it to today.
Right.
So you therefore have to have an understanding as to the limitation of the equipment at the time. What was this meant to be like? For example, VHF transmission. We have loads of VHF transmissions today, loads and loads of signals. When back in the early 50s, when it first came out, you had very few because the BBC monopolised it, but they were very high power. So therefore, the VHF tuners and the radios didn't need to be as sensitive as they are today because they had lots of that power. Now you need to give them a bit more of a boost to make them work efficiently. Awesome. So there's all that, you know. So you have to understand the history behind the product to gain as to how to expect to make it work as possibly as good as you can, you know. And of course, what I was saying about changing components, you know, could fail is reliability. It's no good giving back something to somebody and it works for a day and it packs up only because you should have changed those other components. But they weren't faulty at the time, but experience tells you they probably will be in the next week or a month or a year's time. So that's why I normally carte blanche change known suspects. Not everything. There is actually a company up north somewhere who will, for example, you take a radio, television, give it to them, they will strip it to its chassis and put every brand new component in it. Literally, it'll be like a brand new item. Cost you thousands, but they will do it. Now, that seems to be a bit extreme. And to me, you've lost some of its originality. It's like getting a classic car, basically taking out the engine, putting a new one in it. You've lost its soul, lost what it is. So you try to maintain originality as best you possibly can, like the gentleman who was, you know, putting components into like the capacitor can, which I know a lot of people do. The British Vintage Wireless Society, who I'm a member of, they have a lot of their sort of chaps who love to do that. The old paper ones, I think I've got some around here. There's one here, actually. This is a smaller version, but this is an old one. This is from the late 1920s, early 30s.
Oh, well, can I show that?
And what they would do, they would open that up and put a modern counterpart in it and keep it there. So for the same reason,
was that reason we're coming out recently?
And I actually sort of got a quantity of all different sort of sizes and reproduced them so somebody can do that if they want to, put a new modern counterpart. And because that's the other daft thing, of course, if we take as an example, I'll just take any one of these out.
Let's just tell everybody at home, this has got Hunts on it, trademark.
Which has got a bad reputation, Hunts.
Right, dry electrolytic condenser.
Yes. And do you know why they called them condensers in the past? Because they believed that the actual electrons would condense onto the one plate.
Really?
And that's why they called it a condenser.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, though today we call it a capacitor.
We do, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so you imagine you've got something like that, and today equivalent, you've got that.
Yeah.
You can fit in there quite comfortably, can't it? You know. But yes.
So you can make it look good.
Oh yes, you can, and people do that, and I will supply that type of finished product where they can then fold it and make it look like an original one if they so wish.
Well, I think it's about time. I'm sure that some people at home will have asked questions and things by now. So I think it's about time I stop talking and let you at home ask Mark some of the questions that you're dying to ask, I'm sure, about his work, both as a repair engineer for many years and also his work on the repair shop. So Tammy, over to you.
Yeah, we've got a couple of comments here. Tony just came back earlier about saying, when we talked about the replacing the cap and that, he says that I'm retired, so time's not an issue. So he can do it. He's also put, in my experience, wax paper screen bypass capacitors go leaky, even short circuit, and high value carbon resistors go high in value, e.g. 100 kilo ohms up.
That's very true. Yeah, often I can find that the carbon composite resistors, they often will go into megohms. But you're right, the wax, normally you can tell the paper ones because they've got a wax coating over them. So if you see a wax coating on a little radio, invariably that's going to be leaky, and just change it. As I say, today the components are fortunately so much cheaper than what they used to be. So you could completely change all the capacitors, say in an average radio. It wouldn't cost you more than £1. So why even attempt to leave them in?
Yeah.
It's just purely for that reason alone, because you've got to have reliability. It's like taking your car to a garage and the car's going to break down a week later. That's not a very good garage. You'll get a bad reputation. So do all the things you think are necessary to ensure not only effectiveness and efficiency of the radio, reliability. You don't want a customer to come back only a week later, or it's packed up again. It's not very good. So that's part of it. And now valves. Now, fortunately for me, there's a chap literally less than a mile away from here, Mervyn, and he's got over 100,000 valves in stock.
100,000?
Oh, yeah. Now, I went around, someone offered me valve. I'll buy them. And when I need that valve, go through them, never got the one you want. And then I got in contact with Mervyn. Well, actually, Mervyn got in contact with me originally. Says, yeah, whatever you got, I'll have it. And he has. Mate, so why bother trying to keep them yourself?
100,000.
And rising. Now, the thing is, valves are still being made today, but there are so many new old stock valves around, it will go on for at least another 100 years, I would say.
New old stock, you mean unused ones that are from old... Do they age at all then, really?
No.
Not at all?
They only age when you start putting a filament in them and start heating them up and, allowing the space charge to develop around the cathode to go towards the anode.
So as long as the vacuum's solid and it's lasted 20 years, it'll last another 30 or 40, I presume. I think there's only one valve in here I've had to change. That's from 1947. And I've had valves from the 1920s. Still as good. So, yeah. Valves are very resilient. The good thing about a valve, you can take it, throw it, bounce, and it'll be, don't hit it concrete, it'll love you for it. Transistor was the fastest fuse known to man. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah.
They do not like variations.
Not very forgiving, are they?
No, the valve, you will, if it has, for example, you have what we call a screen grid capacitor go short, that will give extreme high voltage will go onto the grid. You'll know that because you'll see the whole thing glowing red. But it will probably, as long as it's not been on for too long, it will survive it quite comfortably. But one interesting thing we're talking about miniature valves, the 90 volt and the 1.5 volt. One problem I often come about, someone has bought a little radio and they've tried to do that themselves. They don't know which wires to go where. And often with these dual case radios, you have a 3-pin for the HT. The center one is just to locate it, and a 2-pin for the LT, the 1.5 volt, and the larger pin is the positive. People get things around the wrong way and put 90 volts onto the heaters. And they don't
like them up.
They've gone.
They don't like it up.
Yeah, they've gone.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the other interesting point as well, that, I often have people phone me up and say they're after a certain type of resistor, a value. So why do you want that? Oh, because that's what's in there. So no, don't. All values in electronic components, with exceptions like high-end audio, etc., they are average values. When these designers made them, they didn't make them very specific. They knew that tolerances over time would move. So therefore, the values aren't critical. Even capacitors, someone says, I need a 0.02. We'll put a 0.01 in or a 0.04. So anything around that area will do the job. It'll work exactly the same. But resistors, in the past, the very early resistors, they had odd color codes. And the reason being was not because the manufacturers wanted to make these orders or the design was required, it's because the lights they used to use in the factories were non-normal, what's the word? Natural light.
Okay.
They were like a vapor type light.
Like sodium lights?
Sodium, like and therefore they couldn't read certain colors. They just looked like you're colorblind. So they had to put different values, which really seem odd today, to allow the ladies at the time in the production line pick it up straight away, solder it, not trying to go, what colour's that? And that's why we have these really weird and wonderful values, which are not important
so that
at all.
They're different? You mean so that you, on a resistor where you've got, say, 4 or 5 bands of colours, you could easily distinguish them under strange light in a factory?
Yeah, but they were odd values, like 123 or something ohms. And so, of course, the uninitiated, I need 123 ohms. No, you don't. 100 will do, 125, 130, anything in that area will do the job. If you work out characteristics, there's quite a leeway. In the same...
I think the old resistors as well, they used to have silver bands. It's not at all uncommon, wasn't it?
No, that's right.
And that was 10%.
That's correct,
And then sometimes 20%.
Gold.
I can't remember what that was. Gold was 5, wasn't it?
That's
what was 20%? Was it no band?
I think it was something like that.
Yeah, no band was 20%, which is extraordinary. In today's very tolerant, very high tolerance components. So it's not uncommon now in my industry. Yeah. We use 1% pretty much straight throughout because it's not worth having 2 lots of stock because there's very little difference between a 1% and a 5%.
Yeah, exactly. So
it wasn't as critical then.
No, it's not. No, very much so. So that's it. And also, as you say, with half the components in any electronic item, are not really needed to make the item work. They're just there to make it work more efficiently. That's it. So like decoupling components are not there to, if you didn't have the decoupling components, the item would still work. It wouldn't work just as well.
Yeah, you might hear a bit of hum or something.
Or
like
you'll
that.
get feedback. So you have all that, and that's why sometimes people appreciate that. If you like, even a transistor, all the components around a transistor is just to stabilize its biasing. It's not making it work. It'll work anyway. So it's understanding the project. Yeah. And then you know what you can get away with effectively, because unless you're going to have a massive stock of everything, you just, we know we have preferred values, but you could work, that'll do, that capacitor will do the job. You wouldn't notice the difference.
Well, it's experience talking there.
Yeah.
Tammy, have we got some other questions and comments?
Yeah, we've got a few. We've got several people who said that they've seen you on the TV earlier. So they've been watching your Christmas special.
That's very kind of them.
Roy Reed says he's watched all of them and he's going with you with the digital. He says, man of my own heart, must be something to do with Boardswell people, not like in digital.
Yes.
Paul G3VPT, a word of warning, PP9 replacement batteries are readily available, but the size is not the same as the original. I have found that they may not fit your radio.
When it said
PP9, you said, I think you said.
PP9.
Did you say PP9? Well, the PP9 is a larger 9 volt.
Yes, because the PP3 was the tiny one, wasn't it? Which we still use.
I would use that. The PP, these are used often in hacker radios and the Bush TR-80s series. No, I use PP3s.
So the PP9, is he saying that the PP9 are oversized now, even though they call themselves a PP9?
Oh, I see. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what he was saying.
Yeah, they're not the same size as the original.
That's interesting. To be honest, I've never known that because the hackers, which I do a lot, I'm well known for doing hacker radios. The Hacker brothers made the finest radios in this country. And they were self-taught engineers. In fact, they started in the 30s, and they created a product which everybody probably would have heard of a certain age, Dynatron.
Yes.
Now,
I used to work for Pi, and Pi bought the Dynatron brand.
Yeah, they bought the Hacker Brothers out.
Right, okay.
And they therefore stayed as directors for a short time, but they had their own intentions of creating the finest technical equipment, not at a price, but technically.
Yes.
And in 1960, they created Hacker Radio. And then they offset with a number of things until the late 70s. But they used PP9s, and these modern ones will still fit in there. So either they made it a little bit wider.
I mean, a lot of the Hacker, they were rated wooden cases and that sort of thing.
Yes,
weren't they?
yeah,
So
and
they
a
would
Hacker
just
was finished by hand,
yeah.
like a Rolls Royce. You try taking the chassis out and put it in another one, it won't fit so easily. You'll have
Really?
a problem.
It's been made to fit in.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And Hackers never been, in my opinion, have never been bettered. They've been equalled, but their sound system on their radios are phenomenal.
Well, does it stand up to today?
Oh,
even?
yeah.
Because I can see in the corner of your workshop, you've got probably relatively modern DAB radio.
And the only reason is, now it's
Not
called
that
BBC. No, it's called BBC Extra now.
Right.
It used to be BBC 7.
Yes.
That's the only reason why I'd have that. And also I can record them because it's got.
But I mean, the
card.
sound quality from, say, DAB,
that's crap. Oh,
really?
no, DAB.
Really? Compared to that?
Okay, let's talk. Yeah, we were talking about this with, with what was it, Radio Caroline?
Yes,
because I've done some stuff for one of the DJs, and he actually did a nice thing up for me on the program for about half an hour, talking about my merits once, which was really nice of him. But yeah, now first of all, AM against DAB and all the rest of it. DAB. Now let's be honest, the government was trying to buy us into this concept. This was a fantastic idea. Oh, it's much better quality. It's the same spectrum in quality. It's no better. It uses more energy to make it work. So therefore it's not green, secondly. And thirdly, as we all know, DAB, if you don't get this comparison of the signals locked together, it drops out, gone. Yes. VHF, or broadcast medium wave, long wave, you just lose the signal, it gets a bit noisy.
That's true, yes.
So who wants DAB? I don't, and most people don't. That's why they ended up selling them off cheap, because the government at the time was trying to sell off the bands. But we didn't go into it. And at the moment, good on Radio Caroline, because I reckon broadcasting on a medium wave will come back. And that ship will show that there are people out there who want it. And that's the same as amateur radio. In the early days of amateur radio, the amateurs were given the bands which were considered of no use whatsoever. Until we proved we could do long-term communication, then the post office came in, or we're having them, we're controlling them. That's exactly what's going to happen. Broadcast bands will come back. But if for any reason they didn't, how do you get round it? You have a thing called a Spitfire. Now, a Spitfire. I use this on the repair shop. This is a little device. You can buy them on eBay. All right. This guy makes them, and he actually technically sells them to the States, because in the States you don't need a broadcast license, because what they do. They actually sort of put a big area up, and if they're out in the middle of nowhere with a beam, this will transmit up to 2 miles, and they can have a broadcast station. This is literally broadcast quality. It's got an ATU in it. It's got the works.
On what frequency?
This medium wave,
right.
And even does 160 meters.
Right.
So now,
I haven't heard of a Spitfire, not in this context anyway.
Now, what's important about this? Well, the reason is you plug this in, and he supplies it with a 10-foot piece of wire, drop it anywhere around your house, plug in anything in the back of it, phono input. So you can have, for example, your FM.
Show that to the camera.
Yeah, you can have your FM. Yeah, you can have your FM tuner. You could have your DAB, your CD player, MP3 player. And it will transmit it anywhere on the broadcast band medium wave at broadcast quality within the limitation of the house.
Well,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Is this legal?
No.
Right.
But that's why it's limited. So it would not go beyond the
Just very low power.
It's very low power.
But it does enable you to keep those things.
So a lot of people will have numerous radios, or for example, put in, say, the Clitheroe Kid, put it on there and listen to it all on their radios around the home.
But that brings us on to something, doesn't it? Because you've got that as a piece of test equipment.
Yes.
But what about if you do fix a fantastic radio with a wonderful backstory on it for a contributor on the repair shop?
Yeah.
But then when it's fixed, there's nothing actually to listen to.
Well, there is, because I make sure I either use that or something similar.
Right.
But that's intriguing. Now you mention that, because obviously, though we're part of the BBC in a sense, we're not the BBC. And now the BBC archives have got, I think, copyright on most things, music-wise.
Yeah.
Ricochet haven't. They have to pay to have something. So we have two versions. We have a UK version and we have the rest of the world version, because how much it can cost.
What, because you're playing copyright of music?
Yeah, even when I play a record on a record player.
Right.
Well, this Christmas one was an Nat King Cole.
Yes.
So that was fine. But when we had to do the international, it was some really horrible music. I had to get the two ladies to think, oh, well, this is nice for the first time.
When I worked for the BBC, we had I just worked for local radio mostly, where we had what's called a needle time budget. I don't know if this is interesting. Have you ever heard of needle time?
No.
Well, when we at the local radio, it was mainly speech based, as you probably know, probably the same now for Radio Norfolk.
Yeah.
And you could only play so much music per hour because it cost money.
Yeah.
So we had to concentrate and try and use as much non-needle time radio as we could, because every bit of needle time sound that we played, we had to log it down in those days by hand. Nowadays, it's all done electronically, and actually pay the performing rights or whatever
exactly
for
the
it.
Same thing.
Yeah, so I guess it's the same sort of thing here, and that you don't, or the BBC, if they sell the program abroad, BBC Worldwide will probably do that.
Yeah,
but they wouldn't have the rights necessarily to use that music. And
sometimes we use music which is rather dated, shall we say?
Yeah.
You know,
probably out of copyright, maybe.
Exactly, 90 plus years.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I've done that before. Figure, oh heck, you know.
Goodness.
But that's what we have to do.
So that's interesting. So you do sometimes two or three different types of filming for different markets.
Yeah, we have television. Yeah, so that's why like a reveal could take 2 hours, 2.5 hours. That's why and you're there for 8 hours. And if we were doing 2, 3, maybe 4 reveals and arrivals in a day, now you know where we have a problem with camera time.
Of course, yeah. And that's expensive stuff as well. I mean, in studios, it used to be very, very expensive.
Yes.
You had a whole, studio at Television Centre or something in use. That was costing you many, many pounds per second. So,
this is
and I guess it's similar here.
Exactly.
You're paying a whole crew. How many people in the crew on the repair shop? Because we only see on screen maybe 4 or 5 people. How many people are behind the camera?
Well, you've got say 5, 6 cameramen. Then you've got sound, which is 1 or 2. You've got the director. Then you've got the runners, you've got the editors, do a basic edit on site in another office there.
To make sure everything's going to look right, probably with the rushes.
The producers. So we could have 20 people any time as an average. And when it gets really busy, you can get 30 people.
Really?
Hello. That'll have to be left.
All right.
Okay. I'll just, bear with me, do that. And they ring back or say, sorry.
All right.
I'll do that. Leave it on.
Well, at home, Tammy, do we have any more questions for Mark at the moment, or any comments?
Yeah, we do. Sunny M0SYW says, does everything that gets repaired get shown, or is it sometimes edited out?
No. Good. It's an interesting sort of thought, but no. Everything which is done and is filmed will always be shown. However small, big the item is. Sometimes something you think, well, it didn't go so well, by the time they edit it, it doesn't look so bad. And really, they're the people who really make us look good. It's the people behind. It's the cameraman, the edit.
Director.
How
he shoots something.
Because he's looking at it from a different angle to what you are.
Yeah.
And often the cameraman, you'll say, oh, so-and-so, so-and-so. Like, for example, we have a joke at the bar. Mark, what's a capacitor? Right, where do you want to start? And you try to explain in a capacitor to someone who knows nothing about electronic. And you go, what capacitor? They go, no, I didn't get that. And you think, right, what analogy? Oh, so-and-so, no, I didn't get that. And you go, boom, boom, got that. And that's what's used. So therefore you start thinking in a different way. How can I explain this in a simplified way that an average person's going to understand in its simplistic form? And they're the ones who ask those questions, because you could just rub it on and think, what the heck's he talking about? And they go, no, I didn't get that. Can we start that again, or whatever? Or you make a mess. You often, etc. Cut, start again.
But there's a lot to do, isn't there? If you've got all those people there as well doing other repairs at the same time. So
yeah. And of course, I have a tendency when I'm talking, I get enthusiastic, my sound goes up, my level. And then, Mark, get down, or we're doing sync here.
Do you wear tie clip mics? So we're making, or do they use boom mics?
No, we do use boom occasionally, only on when we're doing the arrivals and reveals. We have one above us, and they have somebody else holding one, and then we have our mics, which are like a little stick there, and stuck in the back, which are very efficient, even with the jumper on.
Really well.
And because that's the other thing, you start doing an arrival, say in the height for summer, and you've got something like this on, and great, this is fine, this is cozy. But the time you get round to it, because of either there's reasons for that you can't get the contributor back in time, or there's certain problems with the item, you need to take longer to do it, or they pulled you onto something else. So then it's winter time.
So it can be months and months.
Oh yeah,
really? So from
months.
the first point at which we see the contributor come and present you with the object, it can be months before it's actually repaired and they come back to the reveal. You still got to have to wear the same shirt, the same bit, because that doesn't change. So, and often it's more the ladies, what I call the teddy girls, they're the ones who suffer more. They get cold. And, sometimes you will go in there, they'll have like hot water bottles stuck to them like a baby. They'll have a heater underneath trying to warm them up, because the barn's about 60 foot tall. Right. So heat rises. Yeah. So it's lovely and warm up there, but it's not down here. And when the barn was redone about a couple of years ago, we had all these little bugs, and they're all dropping. Bink, seen them run, and they had to keep clear, because when they was doing close-up filming, little bug running along. Really? Get off. Oh yeah, all over you. Yeah. So it's not a comfortable environment. Despite what they think. Well, it's interesting to see these behind the scenes. Anything else from you at the moment, Tammy?
Yeah, we've got Mike G4DYC. He says, very good talk, Mark. Do you only use leaded solder or a mixture? And plus, do you try to use the old type of wiring as well?
Okay, no, I generally don't use older type wiring unless it's like the cord, the mains cord. Obviously, if you've got something vintage, then you try to give that sort of that look to it, and you can buy a modern equivalent corded stuff. So I'd always do that. Again, when something's inside and it's hidden under a chassis, I will just use modern wiring, basically, because it's just convenient, not for any other reason. Unless, again, a client specifies they want a certain restoration. And there's your thing. See, when someone brings something in, are you to repair it? Are you to restore it? Restoring something is totally different to repairing it. So therefore, the philosophy and the mindset, and of course, the cost changes that. So, and that's then for the client to decide. Yes, you can be clever. You could restore it exactly as it was. It's like the case, I do all the cases as well. Doesn't get often seen on the repair shop because they've got will to do most like the woodwork. Yeah. But I have actually had something, I can't say what it is, Bakelite smashed in 40 pieces, and I completely rebuilt it, resprayed it, redid all the chassis. You glued it all back together in individual pieces. Oh, and you wouldn't even know it'd been broken. The guy was over the moon. That's on not in January. It'll be on sometime in the new year. Yeah. But so yes, and I can French polish if that's what they want, or I can sort of do a more modern cellulite spray. So I'll do all of that. But obviously on the program, I don't often. Though I kept telling them for years I can repair Bakelite, and it took them ages before they gave me one to do. But yes.
Okay, Tammy?
Just one more at the moment. Mike, GAEY, he says, have there ever been total failures? Although I think you covered that actually a little while ago, didn't you?
Yeah, we've total failures very, very close, but there's always a way, given time, to get round a problem. And that's the important thing. Though there is obviously, with any production company, time's money, and something can be extended, but at the end, they really do want you to complete it and make it successful, not just for you, but for the person who's brought it in. Course, yeah. So therefore, it's like if something really blew up, there's got to be another item like that where you can take the parts from it, but it can take time. It could take months, maybe, to source that appropriate sort of part. So that can happen. In fact, that I think in January, the one which was a bit of a pig is going to be visible. I think it will be shown, which was a problem, Well, we look forward to seeing that one. Yes. Got a question here that someone sent in advance, actually. It's Tom GXQD. Says, looking forward to learning some new tricks in antique radio repair techniques.
If available, I'd like to see a list or see the equipment used by Mark for his valve radio repairs, please.
Okay.
I have several mains and battery valve radios awaiting restoration or repair from the 1920s to the 1950s.
Good for him.
But he's waiting for warm weather. They're in his shed or shack. I mean, I know I put you on the spot, really. I could have told you earlier, but
No, it's
is
fine.
it? Could we have a quick look round?
Okay.
Kevin's got the camera.
Okay.
Maybe you could take us round.
Sure.
Because we can see here certainly some traditional equipment,
Yeah.
and then some really modern, digital oscilloscope there in the corner. There.
Yes.
So can you take us around some of this
Sure.
stuff?
Well, one thing which is very useful for restoration, particularly valve equipment, is that, and that's the Taylor valve tester.
Which one is that? So if we can see that. Then.
Yeah,
I'll let you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's that there. That was undoubtedly one of those was in near enough every TV repair shop. The Taylors. They are good because they're very simple to use. They will tell you exactly what you need to know if the valve is working, and we call that testing its mutual conductance. And the mutual conductance is its basic form of amplification, where you take a very low level AC signal in on the grid and you make sure and measure how big it is on the anode. And that's it. How efficient is the valve? You can test for gas leaks, etc. as well, but 30 seconds, you've tested the valve.
Yeah, I mean, we can see, if you don't mind me doing this, Mark, just pulling this out, because then we can see in the top the actual valve holders.
I can put a valve in and test it if you want.
At least I think that's important, if Kevin can show that. So that lots of different valve holders for different types of valves.
That will test valves back from the 1930s.
But there's not a standard pinout. Is there on valves, or is there?
No,
because how do you reconfigure then each one?
What you do, you've got these switches here. You've got, if I show you a book, this is a typical book, and we open it up like here, and we've got here like an EL34, and it goes on to valve base number 12, which is on there, and it's 6.3 volts heaters, and the voltage 60 volts on the anode, 60 volt on the screen, 5 volts on the grid, and I put 430 in down here, and I expect on that to get a mutual conductance reading of around about 1.7.
This is a magic book. Is this the one that comes with the? Oh,
Yes.
I see. So
I've got
that
two.
is the book which comes for this piece
Yeah.
of test equipment.
So that is incredibly handy, especially if someone's got loads of valves. Like all these things, once upon a time they were being thrown in the skip. Now they're about £300 or more
for one of those.
Yeah.
But that's obviously a vital piece of equipment for you if you're
It's
fixing
very
valve
handy.
equipment.
Yes, and Avo did a version, and Avo were far more complicated, and that is so much easier. That's designed for the repairer, Then we go over to other things. Right, well, this is another important thing, really. Let's be honest. All this equipment looks all great and fantastic. What do you really need to repair a radio generally? And that is a little multimeter. If you know how to use that, 80% of your faults can be found and done with that alone. You don't need all this. This is great. This really impresses people when they come in. Here we go again.
Don't worry.
But it's gone off. That's good. Probably. So yeah, and that's really.
And this is one thing that most of people watching this, I guess, are going to be radio amateurs, and most of us have a multimeter.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that most people that have only got one will have a digital one.
Yeah.
This is a moving coil one.
Yeah.
With a needle.
Yeah.
Is this a better for your work? Is this better to have a moving needle one than a digital one?
I've got all the digital things you can imagine. Why have an analog? Well, an analog one, very quickly you can see, or is it work? Yes or no? Is that going to work? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. You don't have to wait for the digits to.
No, and also because it's so sensitive, a digital one, it's going. And you're thinking, crikey, what's that reading mean? Well, all I want to know, is it there or not, or is it approximate? You don't have to be extreme levels of accuracy. And also, great to check in a electrolytic capacitor, charge and discharge. You put the voltage on it, see the meter go boom, and then it discharges. That's all you need to know. Don't need to go beyond that.
And in fact, if you use a digital one for that, because the impedance is so high, it wouldn't actually discharge the capacitor anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, this is a struggle I have sometimes with friends, or and particularly some of our young friends who are trying to learn about electronics. And of course, naturally, you just want to think that's something like that's really old-fashioned. And then something with a digital reading is good. But actually, they really do have a place, don't they? And I've in my workshops, I've definitely got one of each. Definitely a good digital and a good analog.
I've got loads of digitals.
Yeah.
I've got capacitive meters. And I tell you what, this is another thing. This is like all this electronic equipment. Now, once upon a time, this stuff to buy in a workshop was a fortune. It was incredibly expensive. You know, now today you can get something like that. That will test a transistor, a capacitor, a resistor, an inductor, less than £20, and it'll do more than what all this stuff can do.
It's extraordinary. That'll give you the gain as well, HFE, won't it? So I've got similar things.
Absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, crikey, it's in you can put it in your pocket.
Yes.
You know, and it'll do exactly what these multimeters will do, but more. You know, so yeah, it's really incredible how things have gone up. Certain things are very handy, of course. This is an RS signal generator that goes up to VHF. It's also it's a wobulator, a sweep generator, which is useful. Then that is a Marconi, AM signal generator, which I use mainly around about the sort of up to the broadcast bands, medium wave, occasionally up to shortwave bands. But that does everything I need there. And then what else? I've got an insulation tester, which I use to test the capacitors on.
Okay.
Literally, I will just, put it on 100. For example, though they say, you should test it at its true voltage, like if a capacitor is rated 200 volts. But I'll just put it on 100 volts and test it and see how much resistance is, and that'll tell me if it's leaky or not straight away. So what I would often do is something like this. I will take, I'll get this when it comes in, and I'll do maybe like 2 or 3 tests on just random capacitors. What are they looking like? Oh, they're all leaky. Then all of them are going to be leaky. Oh, 2 of them are good. 1, is not so bad. And then you can think, well, what do I do here? All those give you an idea of where do you think you need to develop this. Because when I do a repair, I don't just say to somebody, right, it's going to cost you X amount of money. They'll want to know, well, get the radio to me or the item. Now, you need me to give them an idea how much it's going to cost. Well, until I've repaired it all, how am I going to know? So therefore, you go have a quick look, do some measurements, test the valves. That's easy. Look at the wiring, visually check everything, because your eyes are the first thing you'll ever look at. You can find so many potential faults or incidents which could happen if you just randomly turned it on. And then you call the customer up and say, right, well, I think based on what I've seen, it's probably going to cost between this and that, because I'm going to have to change those components. So you've got a better idea. But you can't just do everything and then phone, oh, hello, Mrs. Jones. Yeah, that's £600 you owe me. What? I didn't expect it to be that much.
Yeah, it must be very difficult.
So you sort of get to understand. But then what do you do now? You've got this item. It's not been used for, say, 50 years, perhaps. Do you just go plug it in, turn on and wait? Or do you find a better way? Now, I use basically this system here. I have a current meter. I have a voltage. That's a 1940s voltmeter as well. And effectively, I literally have can't think the word.
What is it?
Variac.
Oh, Variac, yeah.
And I use and I turn the voltage up slowly and see how the current is forming. Because if that suddenly starts doing that, we know we've got a problem. And then I turn it up to a point where I think that should be enough for this. Because if something hasn't been used for a long time, like electrolytic capacitors, the dielectric inside them, the chemicals dried out. Yeah. But electrolytics will reform. But you don't want to give them a shock. You just apply. It only takes literally, though people say, oh, minutes. You don't. You can do it in probably 10, 15 seconds. A slow apply the voltage, and it will make it rapidly reform. So you're not going to stress it and cause any real problem.
Give it its polarity back.
Polarization. Stop it exploding or whatever. And then you can also monitor how the current is being drawn as you're using it, and you monitor that regularly just to make sure, because anything's going to go wrong, the current will go up first.
So you said you have to take this sort of equipment with you. I mean, yes. So much. How what's the most you've had to take down to the repair shop?
I would have said signal generator, oscilloscope, insulation tester, audio frequency oscillator, all this setup here, soldering iron, multimeters.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Almost a van load, I thought, rather than a car.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. Yes.
Good.
Because it's a long way to come back.
Yes, if you forget something.
Exactly.
Has that happened?
No. Oh, no, actually, yeah, probably. But I've got round it. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we've kept you a long time tonight, Mark, after a day's work as well. And this is your final chance. If you haven't already put something on BATC or Facebook and you want to, then do it right now, because we'll be shortly finishing. Mark, I'm going to ask you a question, which I know you did tell me was one of the most popular things that you're asked when you're out and about.
Yes.
Is that when people bring things to the repair shop and go on television, do they have to pay anything?
No.
To have it fixed?
They do not pay a penny. It's all down to the item, and at the end the BBC cover the cost.
So it's all part of the production of the programme.
Oh,
that covers
absolutely,
it.
yes. So no one's got to worry about how much is this going to cost to do. If they think it's a valid story with a good sort of thing for the TV audience to see, that's all it comes down to. Nothing else.
Do you know that they have plenty of people apply? I mean, are they
thousands?
Deluged? Are they really?
Normally, what happens, and this is one of the slight difficulties, is that, say, for example, Steve's done a certain clock,
mm-hmm.
and it's been shown on broadcast, and then 1,000 people are saying, I've got a clock like that, I want it repaired. No, we want something different.
Right.
So it's really trying to find something a little bit not what we've just done, because people don't want to see the same type of teddy bear or the same type of chair or rocking horse constantly being redone again. Might be for somebody else, but it gets a little bit monotonous. So they're always looking for something different and new. So that's important.
I'm looking forward to seeing the jukebox thing, because you said you're doing another one.
Yes.
There must be something different about that. I know you can't talk about it. It's not been on
story.
air. All right. Well, I know you're not allowed to talk about it.
The last story was sad. This one is a real.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's really.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the only.
Do you yourself? I mean, you're doing your job. You're repairing something. But do you personally get involved, with the emotional side of it as well, with people bringing the stories?
Oh, yeah. It's like, I think, on this Christmas one, which has just been, was now gone now, Will was crying in the background because of how they reacted. Oh, yeah, it gets to all of you. You get into that zone with them. The only disadvantage, in the past, we could hug them. Now we have to stay distant.
Of course, yeah.
And actually, it's quite a funny story, because when I was doing the jukebox, this is before we had the COVID, and I had a camera literally by my shoulder, and the director goes, "Whatever you do, Mark, don't move." And the guy, was reacting, and I thought, I can't go round, I can't do nothing, I had to stay there, because my mother said to me, "Oh, you was a bit uptight, and you didn't go and see him." I couldn't. I was told not to move.
Because you'd probably blocked the camera.
I would have blocked the camera, yeah. And of course, when you show a reveal, you only have one take.
Right. Oh, of course, because you only get their reaction once.
Yes, and therefore, and that's another thing we're sort of told, that when you do the reveal, say nothing, do not interrupt, let it all come out. You're not wanting people to cry. That's not the whole idea. Though some people think, I just want them to cry, can make it good. No, we don't. Joys of laughter and happiness is equally just as satisfying, but you just allow them to sort of, get into that moment. And you'll see in their eyes, they've seen it. And then those memories of what it meant to them, or the person who used to own it, comes back. And that's what brings the sentiment up, So, we don't try to make people cry.
But it naturally is going to be an emotion, especially that reveal.
Yes.
When they get it. The ones I've seen, very often there have been tears at the end.
Yeah, they have. And that's because it meant so much to them. Having this little inert object suddenly come back into their life, and what it actually means to them. There's so many which I could give example, but they haven't been shown yet, so I can't explain why, which is really frustrating.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing the next ones, and I'm sure they'll mean more to all of us now, having met you and heard the backstory of it. Tammy, just to you for a final one, is there any other queries or questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got about 3 questions for you.
Okay.
Roger G3LDI, do they rely on people asking for the repairs, and how is the choice made?
That's interesting. What happens, you can go online and you submit, and the better your submission is, the story behind it, etc., then we have researchers, a group of researchers will go and they have thousands a week. They have to go and they have to make rash decisions.
Yeah.
So sometimes somebody will put something in, not hear a thing, and they think, well, that's ignorant of them. But it's not. They've got so many they can't answer. And then 5 months later, all that item you presented will be interested in knowing more about it. That's what can happen. So it's a case of just being patient, Give these people a chance, because they have to go through so much. And then the concept, how long it takes to get an item from somebody submitting it to when for example, I will get it, because it will go first of all to the main production team, and you think, well, that's an interesting one. That's, no, Dom, that could be for Dom. Oh no, Mark might better do that. Then it'll come to me, and I'll say, right, yeah, well, I think this is what we need to do with this. It's going to take so many days to do it. This is what I'm going to need, etc. Then it goes back. They make a report, goes to the BBC. They will bring it back, and then the BBC will say, yeah, we'll agree. They will sign it off.
So so the BBC has executive producer or something like that, as well as the production company, Ricochet.
At the end, the BBC are the ones who sign the checks.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who say, yeah, that can go forward. No, we're not having that. It's their final decision. And that's then after that is then we then get involved in it. So we're right at the beginning, but then we don't hear anything until we know it's been signed off.
So it can be many, many months, I presume, or even years.
Not years. It can be months, though invariably when something gets to the point where the production team think this could be of interest, normally, a couple of weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks, you normally got an answer. Yes, that's going forward.
How much of your time does this take now?
Lots.
But I mean, proportionally, with the amount of repairs that you do as a business, does this take half your time now, say?
More than that.
More than half your time? Oh, yeah,
because see, what it is, and this is what we did venture roughly on before, when I've got potentially something coming in, you're supposedly to be the expert. So you've then got to look up, Google it or whatever, find as much information about it as you possibly can, so you're this wealth of knowledge, as well as understanding the practical limitations on how you're going to repair it and make it good again. So, and that's all research. Now that research is off camera, and that's your time, and you need to do it. If you know, next Wednesday I'm down at the repair shop doing this, I've got to know as much about it as I possibly can. So to make sure that I don't look daft and know what I'm talking about, and I've got my facts right. Because if you get them wrong, there'll be someone out there who'll tell you.
Yes, of course. That's the downside, I guess, because you potentially probably have millions. When I looked a few days ago, looking at my research in it, and there was something like 6 million audience average.
Yeah,
you have.
Yeah,
for this program.
Yes.
That's a lot of people, isn't it? And as you say, there's going to be somebody amongst them who'll know something if you get something a bit wrong or don't know.
Funny enough, I can tell you a couple of points. One which was wills, and I've had two. And all of them have had something in the past. But one was which was this chap a couple of seasons ago, brought in, he called it a Spitfire. And the wood needed redoing, made by some uncle in the Second World War, gave it to him, said, oh yeah, this Spitfire means so much to me. So Will got it, did all the work, made a fantastic job, made a plinth for it to lay on, and the rest of it, did the reveal. Guy was over the moon with this Spitfire. Then I think a day or two later, oh, that's not a Spitfire, that's a Mark V Hurricane. The contributor for it's a Spitfire. It's not for us to say it's not.
No.
Simple as that. But yeah, you had, and I had only two really, which is not bad considering. One, the chap retracted on. I did what they called, because obviously they called them different things to what we were calling. We called it a homemade radio. It was an amplifier with an FM tuner. And I was changing these capacitors, and this guy said, "Are you put on some website?" Oh no, he's used the wrong components, wrong capacitors. And I thought, hang on a minute, have I? I don't think so. Anyway, within about probably less than a few hours, a guy actually sent me an email. Look, I'm really sorry, I made a mistake. You did do the right component. And I checked myself. I thought, they're not wrong. So that can happen, but he retracted. The most interesting one was I had to do a 1930s homemade electric gramophone. Dom had to make the horn. I sort of come up with the design. I had to rebuild the motor, get it all working. But it had two types of head. One was called, what do they call it now? Hill and Valley. Is it Hill and Dale? Goes up and down. Very early record, 78. Went up and down. They didn't go left to right like a modern stylus.
Right.
They're very rare, very valuable. And this head had it. I said, no, we're not using them because they are valuable. So I'll just tell the contributor, keep them, look after them, don't play them. And we'll just use the conventional 1920s head for conventional 78. Well, I got an email from somebody. Oh, yeah, I see you had a Hill and Dale, because up and down, Hill and Dale, head. And I said, yeah. And I let the contributor know, look, these are valuable, don't use them. And I sent the email, I thought, well, that'll tell him, you know. Oh, no, I'm not satisfied with that. Oh, well, what else can I say? Told the lady not to use them. She hasn't used them. What do you want me to do? You know, so you...
But that's out of millions of people watching. So
exactly.
You've done well, I think.
Yeah, and Jay says that because Jay gets some criticism. Jay is a really lovely bloke.
Yes, he's got an amazing story himself, hasn't he? I was
he
reading that
has,
as well.
And, you know, and he's talented. He does his own restoration work, but because he doesn't have the opportunity to do a lot in the barn, because he's the foreman. Yeah. He comes, does the reveals, and rivals, comes and sees us, how we're doing, or we need this and need that. And he's been criticised in the past. Oh, well, he doesn't do much. Well, he does, but you don't see it. Yeah. Purely, and he says, look, if only 5 people complain out of 6 million, I'm not bothered. Exactly. Yeah. You know, but it's true, you know. Yeah. So, but it's a great team to work with. We have great laughs. We have tears. But our one goal is to get it absolutely perfect for the contributor. So the tears of joy, hopefully, at the end, in that someone has been reunited with something they remember from a long time ago. And they wouldn't know where else to go because these little corner shops which once would have done repairs like that don't exist. So, you know, so we're the shop now which can do that. Yeah, which is really nice. Tammy, you've got another couple of questions, I believe. I have, yeah. Robert G4TUK, what happens if you diagnose a fault that the part is not available, i.e. an on-off switch or a belt or something like that? Okay, interesting. The answer basically is we can always find something which will do the job. There's never, because there's so much old electronic equipment around, donors, for a better word, for old radios, equipment, it's time, but you can always find it, I think is the honest answer. Where do you get that from? Because I was looking at one, again, part of my research was I found one that you were doing on a tape recorder, and the belt wasn't available, but you had a lovely cardboard box full of belts. That was from where do you get those belts from? That was from a friend of mine, Mervyn, who does the valves. Oh, I see. Okay. You know somebody in the trade has got something you haven't. I think that's what it really comes down to. What about, I mean, in normal times when we have radio rallies and things, do you ever go to radio rallies and pick up that sort of thing? I wish I had the time. Right. I know it's ridiculous, isn't it? And I've got to make time because I don't see half the things I should do. My sort of favourite shop, if you like, is eBay. I find so much stuff I need is on eBay. Yes. From all my components I buy from eBay. So you haven't found anything much to floor you. I mean, Robert's question was to where you get everything from. It's out there somewhere. As yet, but now I'm going to put the mockers on it. As yet, no, I've not come across I've not been able to find a part for. I'm still getting over that. Did you say 100,000 valves? How many valves? 100,000 of anything. It's hard to get my head round. Yes. But 100,000 valves. Oh, we've got. And he's with the mile of here. Yeah. Yeah. I don't need to buy a valve. I just give Mervyn a call. Wow. And I just say, Mervyn, you got so-and-so? Oh, I've got dozens of those. And I go up, get one, job done. Fantastic. And even our valves, he doesn't do those, but they're the early valves. They were like a light bulb because the early thermionic valve was basically that the people who come up with the idea went to a bulb manufacturer to have them made, and they made a bulb. And it's like you can use it as a bulb, but it also was a very early type of triode. Yeah. So it's always interesting. Yeah. And thanks for the question, Robert. And another question I think you had, Tammy? Yeah, I've just got 2 more quickly as well. Jim G3YLA, fantastic insight into your world, Mark. Ever considered writing a repair and fault finding book? It'd be a big take up, I would think. Yeah. I mean, do you know what we've just, because the repair shop comes out with books ever so often. And we have thought about how could we do something like that, because health and safety these days, you can't just tell somebody to dive like an AC/DC set, dive in and have a live chassis, something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's an interesting idea. There are other people who've written some fantastic books, and to be honest, I don't think I could better what they've already done. They are already out there, and I can't see how I could really improve on what they've done, in fairness. But it's great to try to encourage somebody, and a lot of young, even school children love the repair shop, and we do let them come in occasionally and see us and have a chat, and to encourage those like-minded people to learn. But with electronics, there's 2 parts to it, isn't it? Number one, you have to learn a certain amount of theory. it's not like, oh, can you repair that piece of wood? Can you repolish it? Well, you just play with it until you get it right. And you don't have to have too much background knowledge to have a go and see. And if you don't work, oh well, never mind. Electronics, you have to have a basic fundamental theory to understand how these components work. Otherwise, you're really going to have it difficult. So it's then hard to. There's got to be a way, like a Ladybird series type equivalent, which was an early book for young children, how to understand history and nature, etc. That's what we need, is a really basic
guide. Yeah.
And I think because if you understand the basics, however complicated it is, you'll understand it. My father was brilliant at maths, and he used to say the highest fantastic maths in the world comes down to addition, multiplication, subtraction, etc. That's all it can be. It can't be more complicated than that, because that's all they've got.
And I guess even modern electronics has just got still capacitors, resistors, semiconductors, but they're just really small.
It is, exactly.
Essentially, and lots of them.
Yeah, it is. It's just understanding that, to get the basics, the fundamentals. And there are some brilliant books, which I'd highly recommend. The American Navy back in, I think, the 40s, come up with, and I haven't got them in this room. It's called Core Series, like basic television, basic electrical, basic electronics. You can buy them on eBay. If you want to learn the basics of radios to the point where you could take that book and at the end of reading those, you could repair, they're the books to go for. They are fantastic because they were written by people who knew what they were doing, and they dulled it to a level where people didn't understand anything. And by the time they come out of that course, they got the basics very, very good. So why reinvent the wheel? It's already been done by some amazing people. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Tammy?
Yeah, just a few comments really saying, thanks, great talk, and Merry Christmas from a few people. We've had Marco, DM5ML from Koblenz saying Merry Christmas,
Germany,
everyone,
right.
and Happy New Year to you all from Koblenz. And just the last question I've got now is from Ian, G4JQT. He says, has anyone ever been disappointed with the results? And if so, do those get shown?
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, not so much disappointed. I'm glad to say it's not been my items, because mine normally have to create some type of sound, and sound and emotion normally trigger something. But there has been certain items been given, and you think, here's a reveal. Oh, thank you very much. You thought, I won't say, but we thought, ungrateful so-and-so. All the work's been done, and well, thank you very much. And I do know, though this was a long time ago, that there were, don't know what the items were, I think maybe one or two were put in the early days to be repaired or restored, and they were sold. Commercial gain. And therefore now they are very, hang on, we want to know more about you, what this item is, what does it mean to you, where did you get it, to ensure we're not getting any of that. Don't think it's happened for many years now, but I believe there was an issue the early stage with that.
Right.
Yeah, but yes, there's been the odd person who we felt maybe the reaction wasn't as good as we had hoped.
Maybe they're not someone to show emotion or something like that.
It can be that as well. It
Or
can be
camera
that as
shy or
well.
whatever.
You're not expecting everybody to jump up and down, scream and shout, or fall on the ground in tears. But occasionally you think, that was a bit flat, Yes.
It's been a fascinating journey, Mark, and you've been so candid about everything you've done. I think we've got a little something for you actually here, just a little something because it's Christmas.
Oh, that's very kind.
It made it from us.
Oh, thank you.
A Christmas card and a box of these, which I don't know if you've had those before, but they're rather special.
Thank you so much.
We do thank you ever so much for being our special Christmas guest.
No, I'm most. It was a great pleasure. I could go rabbit on for hours. Unfortunately,
it's been fascinating. I'm going to let actually a friend of yours who didn't know this, but he wrote to me and he said this. I'm going to let him sum up really about what it is. It's Michael 2E0SZP who says, I'm looking forward to watching Mark Stuckey on Wednesday. I've known him for over 40 years.
He has. Hello, Mike.
And in my first experience of radio was when Mark and myself built two transceivers together.
Yeah.
He says, I held the soldering iron. And he says that Mark is the nearest man I have met that could be called a genius.
Oh, I wouldn't
and
say
I'm
that.
very proud to be able to call him a friend.
Well, that's very kind of Michael. In fact, Michael, I was trying to call you on the local repeater the other day, but you didn't answer. I thought you'd have be on. But I did try to call you recently.
Well, so if you ever do hear Mark G0SQK now,
yep,
you'll know who it is.
Indeed.
Mark, thank you ever so much for being our special Christmas guest.
It's been a real pleasure.
Sharing all of this with us.
No, in fact, and it's a brilliant club.
Thank you.
On the record, I will join. I will join it.
Good.
Yes.
You've got quite busy at the moment, but we look forward to joining.
Yes, I will get there, I promise.
Thank you, Mark. So that's it almost from tonight. And of course, thanks very much, apart from to Mark, also to Kevin M0, who's been doing all the cameraman technical work. And of course, Tammy back in the studio, who's had just a little bit of help from some kind of Bugs Bunny thing or character or whatever. Just to let you know what's happening at the club. As I said, there is a special Christmas Day evening net at 7:30 run by Nigel, 2E0NLK. On Monday, we've got the Monday night net with host John M0 VCX at 8:30, the 80-meter CW net on 3.543 megahertz. And next Wednesday, it's the review of the year, but it's very informal, it's interactive, and we're reviewing the year with you. Whatever you like to see, whether it's part of tonight's program or any other of the 51 programs that have happened since we did this last Christmas, we would love to hear your suggestions, and we'll dig them out of the 120 odd hours of archive that we've got and play a bit of it next week for you. So we'd love to hear from you. But that's it from here in Cromer, from Mark and from Kevin on the cameraman, and from me. All of us wish you a very happy Christmas at home. And,
yes.
So from us here, back to you, Tammy, in the studio.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you all.
Yeah, good. Oh, my microphone's not up. Goodbye from us as well. My little friend is still here helping me. So, yeah, we'll have a good time before the people get home. Back to you.
That's it. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Happy Christmas, everybody. Yep. Take care. From Tammy, Kevin, Mark and myself, best wishes. We'll see you all again next week. Wonderful Christmas. Bye-bye.
Bye all.